Agent Orange that they never used in Vietnam. So these things are possible. I mean, they don't. The Americans. I mean, I'm sorry to your American viewers, but they don't really have a good track record of respecting other people's land. And
Prove to me that you are alive.
What's really good, everybody? Welcome to the one, the only Prove to Me that You're Alive Lightcast, the only place in the world that gives you the mental kick in your spiritual gut so you can start grasping for air of information with the same enthusiasm as you would when you were a little kid. And today we have special guest is saying very little because this is a family member to this channel, a very special brother of ours to the whole movement that we have going on, and he has a movement of himself that he's pursuing. He's the author of The Symptoms of a Dying Nation. He also wrote 90 Seconds to Midnight, why Ukraine can win, but how we can find an exit. So the exceptionally talented, the very brilliant, the always informative, the one and only Orwell McLee. I'm gonna give my brother a round of applause, man. How are you, brother?
yeah, I'm doing well, thanks. Happy to be here as always.
Thank you so much for being here. And we were just talking before we started recording. Like, I apologize, man. I've been all over the place lately, man. So I'm so glad that you were able to adjust to the schedule, man. You were kind enough to do that, man. So what's going on your side, brother?
Same as always. Well, in the morning I day trade, but that's like from Monday to Friday, and in the afternoon I help my family out, and on the weekends it's same usual. And very well, I live out in the countryside, so very once in like every like a week or two, I need to go to the major city to pick up supplies for my family's business and haul it back to them. So that's what I've been doing.
That's really nice that you help out, man, and with the family and everything. Family is the most important thing in the world. Listen, before we get into like all the crazy stuff and the areas of your expertise, before I came on, I started thinking like I wanted to ask a little bit more about you, but in a sense, like, so this is what I wanted to ask you, because I wanted to dive a little bit more into you like we did in the very first time we met. But what I wanted to ask you is, when do you think that you started to get this sense of like that you need to speak out, and you're seeing injustices, you're seeing the way Canada is kind of falling apart, you're seeing everything that's going on with the Ukrainian diaspora, and then you're learning about Ukraine, and you seeing it like, when did you first sort of got the sense of seeking some sort of a justice and finding your own voice? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, I explained it in detail in my first book, Canada Lost: Symptoms of Dying Nation. And in my last chapter, I explained exactly what event has led me to this whole questioning the mainstream narrative thing. And well, I'm not gonna give like spoiler alert for my future readers, but yeah, like it started in well, I'm just gonna I say in my book, so I'm gonna make it official. Yeah, I was in Ottawa for the 4 years. I was living there for 4 years. I was going to school in one of the universities in the city, and I lived there for about 4 years. And starting at around like, well, I mean, for the first like two months, it was beautiful. Like I always dreamed of coming to the city, in hopes of possibly like joining the diplomatic world or the national security that area. And things happened very well for the very first 2 months. It was just like amazing. I was like, oh yeah, it's like my dream has finally came true. I'm like, I just gotta learn French and be a good boy at school. Do what I normally do at school. Just be a good boy, listen to your professors, do what they tell you to do. Then I'll be getting a full time position at like well, what we call like global affairs. That's like this. That's the U.S. equivalent, Canadian equivalent to the Department of State, I believe. The and or like joining like the CSIS. That's like Canadian equivalent to CIA across NSA. Yeah, but things started to go in a real weird direction. Like the one thing that really got me, okay, wait a minute, this just ain't right. Was it this? There was this event back in I think it was September or October of 2016. There was a Chinese premier, late Chinese prime minister Li Keqiang or Li Kai-cheng. He came to Ottawa to visit, and there was this people. Have you ever heard of Falun Gong? Those Chinese dissidents.
No, no. Can you
Okay,
tell us?
yeah, Falun Gong. They're basically like people who are in this like a spiritual movement. It's not even like a religion. It's more like sort of it's more like Zen in or like meditation. That's that or like light body exercises. That's what it
Oh,
essentially
I
what it
know
is.
exactly what you're saying
Yeah,
now. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
qigong or yin yang, those kind of things. And but the Chinese government they deemed it as like a threat to the state because they thought this might grow into this like a huge religious movement that can topple the communist government. And historically, there has been lots of Chinese empires has been overthrown by religious cults, so they're very sensitive about it. And so, anyways, so they suffered like a really brutal persecution back home, and some had to find refuges in the United States, Canada, or elsewhere. So these people are protesting outside of this hotel. They were the Chinese prime minister was staying in, and what they did was they set up this like a big gigantic wooden whiteboard to cover up the front of this hotel entrance, so that the Chinese the foreign dignitaries doesn't have to interact with these protesters. I saw that. I was like, okay, I saw the same thing happen in my home country. This is like a precursor to authoritarianism, and yeah, the rest is history, like we both know.
Um. So okay. So I'm trying to like what I really want to know is where do you think, okay, because this is obviously a pivotal moment, right?
Sure.
This is obviously a moment of an epiphany. But where do you think you have this sense of, let's say, justice? Like, do you remember that you were exhibiting these sort of traits when you were a kid, or
Mhm.
maybe you seen it in your family? Like where do you think you get this sense of like something's not right, but I'm actually want to do something about it?
It has to do with well, my country's national hero, and well, talking too much about him or saying his name will definitely blow my cover. So I'll try not to mention too much about him. But
Mhm.
yeah, well, he's a military leader who actually, well, it's like a lot of people think like the difference between him and like the common military genius is like Napoleon. Or like Napoleon's like he won many battles, but ultimately he lost the war. Like I mean, he lost the Napoleonic War, but he won the war, so that's the difference. So, and I would like to talk. I can go on and on about talking about this wonderful figure, but then again, that's going to blow my cover. So maybe like in the future,
Mhm.
when I feel comfortable, I might talk a lot about him because his strategy is essentially what I've been applying in my day trading as well. So maybe in the future,
Wow.
I might talk about it as well. Yeah.
So basically that was someone that inspired you, right?
Yeah, both in life and what I do for like my business, I suppose.
Hmm. Okay, that's very interesting. When so I'm trying to get an idea without like exposing too much. Do you remember a time when you were satisfied with Canada and you know um its political doings per se? Do you remember that kind of a time, maybe when you were younger, or you know, a time where you were actually satisfied with what Canada looked like?
Yeah, well, it was towards like my mid, like senior years at the university. Like that was still when the conservative government was in power and the oil economy was still going strong. So I thought, well, you know what, but my family went through rough times in the earlier years, and this was a time when like my family's business was growing and it was very stable, and like the income they were generating was growing and growing year after years. So life seemed very good at the moment. I was hoping that, yeah, well, it's slowly but surely, it's getting things are getting better for me and my family. So I hope Canada continues on this going stays on this path or track. But well, now there's the lineup in front of food banks are getting longer and longer day by day. So that's the dire situation we Canadians in today, sadly.
So you said that you were interested in getting into the equivalent of CIA. I forgot the exact.
It's called CSIS. I believe it's short for Canadian Security Intelligence Service,
Okay.
if I remember correctly.
So what was attractive to you about that? And as far as globally, how far does this agency reach? Because we know that the CIA reaches worldwide, and we hear about MI6, we hear about CIA. So what's going on the Canadian side? How far do their intelligence reach? And the second side of the question, what attracted you about that
Well,
agency?
I should know a lot more about what they're doing, but as far as like the most the most hot uh debated issue right now with that the agency and well, in government in general is because like they're letting the foreign governments to have their presence right here in Canada, and the Chinese Communist Party is by for the one that's concerning most number like the most Canadians is they seem to be the most ad hoc aggressive and most I say they're most open in changing the fabrics of Canadian system or the society in the way that fits that makes them pursue their agenda. That is to have like their vassal state or at least have like an ally in North America that can work as a leverage against the United States.
Okay. I want to do a little blitz real quick before you get into the stuff that you're here to talk about.
Sure.
So I'm going to name countries, and you just tell me whatever, in short or in long, what you think about these countries um, as individual nations, but also on the world stage. So let's start with the first one, China. What do you think about China?
Mm, like in one word or like in one sentence?
It could be a word, sentence, whatever you want.
Mm, it's a country that you want to keep a safe distance.
Okay. Um, do you think that there is a real, let's say, military threat from China, the way we've been hearing in the mass media?
Well, it seems like they're really hell bent on reunifying all of China. That means well, like unifying. Well, they managed to to take over Hong Kong like a couple of years ago, few years ago, and now their eyes are just fixated on Taiwan, and they don't even like to recognize Taiwan as like as an independent country. Like so, like when I think there in recently there was this really big news in China, like the one news anchor she actually called China and Taiwan as like as both countries, where in fact she was supposed to say like we are one country.
Mhm.
So yeah, there was a huge uproar about that, which was kind of funny. It's just like a person saying making some like grammatical like mixing up the words. It's not the end of the world, but to the Chinese Communist Party, I guess it is.
Hmm. So yeah, so basically, I'm gonna name a couple more what we consider superpowers, and you tell me what you think about it honestly, and from everything that you know. Okay, so Russia, what do you think about Russia?
Russia is like the uh it's like a it's like the opposite of the like the those like the woke people who wants to keep their safe space.
Mhm.
It's just that this one's like a more like the masculine traditional type one that wants to, oh yeah, I want my safes, I want my safes to be like, I want you to stay the hell away from it. That's kind of the image or the that I get when I think about Russia.
Right. So I was going to ask you, do you, again, you're very informed. You're actually writing books about these sort of topics. So do you believe in the conservative image of Russia, the image that they're putting out into the world?
Well, I mean, on what on the surface, yeah, I guess it is like the like they're all like they say how they Russians are like, like the common narrative is that they value like traditional familyhood, but on the other hand, the rate of divorce in Russia is like one of the highest in the world. So how is that exactly supposed to be, like the uh goes in parallel with keeping and maintaining the traditional familyhood.
That listen, that's
Yeah.
a very good point. I haven't heard people bringing this point up. That's a that's an
Yeah,
excellent
like
point.
I mean, for you, it must be a joke. 'Cause you all these like Western dudes like talking. Oh, Russia is like the land of the traditional familyhood, and you get to meet these like beautiful women who's like the patron of the traditional family. I don't know, man. You be the judge. Like you know
Yeah,
your people.
yeah. The funny thing is that I think that we underestimate how far Western influence has reached, right?
Uh huh.
And it has reached very, very wide into Russia. I just want people to know that modern Russia is not too different from what we see perhaps in European cities, and maybe even in North American big cities, man. So because after, obviously, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, that was the biggest dream that the post-Soviet countries, they wanted to be implemented into this Western world. So I think people kind of, because you just bring up an excellent point with the divorce rates. That's a freaking excellent point. United States, what do you think about the great United States, man?
Mm, it's the country that always has a second chance. Like,
Ooh, I
oh,
never heard that before. Can you get into that? That's so cool,
well,
man.
that's essentially one of the points that I make in my book. Like, why I'm still like, well, despite everything that has happened, I'm pro West, not exact, and not really interested in jumping off from this. Well, some people think of as sinking ship and uh, join the Pax China or embrace the rise of the Ruski Mir or Russian world, for the lack of a better word. Because, well, I mean, well, it's like like think about World War, for instance, like the Nazi Germany. They really try to bring down the Soviet Union, but the Soviet Union was just a whole different like the weight class, right? Like the I think the one analogy was that like the Germans, like, they destroyed 20 like Soviet divisions, Red Army divisions. So what Soviets did was like create a new 20 division of infantry or whatever, and just that's the amount of the vast amount of resources they have, like both in like people and natural resources. I mean, not very many countries that are gifted with that kind of privilege, you know.
Hmm. Do you think? Do you think that a military um military showdown, a full blown out war with Russia can ever be won?
I think it's just gonna be well, it's gonna be a group suicide. I should not, maybe I should not use that word, but it's just it's there's this concept that's been present since the days of Cold War, right? Ever since both Americans and the Soviets developed nuclear weapons. There's this well, short as acronym is MAD. It was mutually assured destruction. So like, doesn't matter which side pressed the button first, we all gonna end up as a radioactive dust, and whoever survives, assuming if there's anyone left after all that the nuclear Armageddon, they're gonna restart human civilization right from the scratch.
Mhm. But take away the nuclear weapons.
Sure.
This is kind of what I've been thinking about lately, and I want to get your opinion on it. as far as we know and as far as we are presented with, the United States obviously spends the most on its military capabilities. Obviously there are probably technologies that we have never even heard of. But I'm questioning if the United States would actually have to go into a full blown out war with Russia. In my head, I don't think that the American soldiers, which are part of the American society, I don't think that they are ready or have the experience to go into a war with a country that has pretty much always been in some sort of a serious uh world conflict. What do you think about that?
Well, most common argument that's been made from all these like the military expert is that the United States haven't fought a war of scale this big since the Korean War. Like Vietnam War was like mostly like like guerrilla warfare, right?
No.
There's some like big battles like here and there, like Battle of Quezon, for example. But ultimately, like it was mostly guerrilla war. You're fighting in, like if you have like small unit actions like skirmishes, like night raids and whatnot. But I don't think the United States has seen the war of this scale since Korean War, and I think they pretty much have forgotten how to fight a land war of this size.
Right. Right. Yeah, I'm glad that you say that, because again, I'm glad that you pointed out the land war aspect of it, because I think looking at the way the world is nowadays, I think, and this is very sad. I think the only people that are actually willing to go into the battlefield are the Slavs, man. Like, as far as if we're looking at the whole world, obviously there are areas in Africa, but again, it's like this small, guerrilla warfare. But as far as an actual, superpower against superpower conflict, Slavs are the only ones that are still like, okay, you want us to go to war? Let's go. Like, I don't think that the Western, you know, uh, average man, woman, whatever, is willing to go to battle, man. Like, what sense do you get, like, let's say in Canada, god forbid tomorrow there would have to be a mobilization in Canada? How do you think the population would react?
A lot of people are gonna try to try to avoid that draft as much as possible. They're gonna like go hide in the woods, kind of like what's happening in Ukraine. Like people avoiding all these, try to get away from the reaches of the press gangs, for like a better word.
Mhm. Okay. So now I want to really get your opinion on, and I asked you this before, but there's been a lot of developments, and since the last time that we spoke, a couple of months has passed. Um, what do you think so far and recently about Donald Trump? And if you can get into, like, the stuff that he promised, the stuff that's going on right now with him and Putin, or him and Zelensky, him and Ukraine, him and Israel. Like, what do you think so far? We have passed 3 months, whatever, of his presidency. I think it's the fourth month or whatever. What do you think so far about Donald Trump?
Well, mm, uh, with regard to the war in Ukraine, he seems. I think he's having this like a hard wake up call that he might not be as relevant as or influential as he thought he was. Like, I mean, his argument was that he could stop the war within a day, but well, it's been about like 3 months. Then, although he seems definitely more enthusiastic about stopping this bloodshed, but it seems to me that Putin's still hell bent on getting whatever he wants out of this war. And like although like there's been I can imagine that the loss from the Russian side has been colossal as well, but somehow Russians are able to absorb that enormous amount of damage despite all the mans and the material that's been destroyed. So yeah, it seems like they already have like the bare minimum of a list of like what they want out of this conflict. and until they get what they think is a bare minimum, they seem to be not willing to give up and willing to keep it going at all cost, which kind of terrifies me.
Yeah, so basically, all the military experts and people like you that are authors and know about, have studied these various subjects closely, are basically saying, look, Russia's winning on a battlefield. The cards are, they have a full hand of of the cards, um, and it's their call. But I still think that if the United States would want to apply some sort of pressure, maybe they can get Putin and so on to the negotiating table. What do you think about that? Or do you think that the United States at this point are powerless and should in fact walk away?
Well, that's what I thought. I thought they were just gonna give up on Ukraine, but it seems like they're not willing to. I mean, they're trying to exploit Ukraine as much as possible. By that I mean they're going to continue using Ukraine as a battering ram against Russia, and well, that means there's going to be a lot more Ukrainian people that's also going to die until like this thing comes to an end. And unfortunately, at this point, I don't have the crystal ball telling me like exactly when this bloodshed is going to stop. So that's also terrifying me.
What do you think about because obviously, again, since we have spoken, a lot of things have happened, and especially the minerals deal, quote unquote minerals deal. So I wanted to ask you a two-part question. What do you think about the minerals deal? And also, have you seen any sort of reaction from the Ukrainian diaspora in Canada about the minerals deal?
Frankly, I have not been following what they've been saying about like the whole mineral deal, but I think they're just happy to get like some sort of like in my expectation that they're kind of happy to have like U.S. support for now, and because that means they can keep this war going for as long as it takes, right? Like I've been saying for over and over, I've been saying over and over. And I mean, I watched your video about your commentary about the whole mineral deal, and you said it's very likely that all those minerals has been dug up and sold out to to the highest bidders, long before this war started. You said, I think you said like it was like after the fall of the Soviet Union, like everything that could be sold.
Prove to me that you are alive.
Was like gutted and sold out to the highest bidder. So I think to me this is just like my speculation. It seems to me like I mean, obviously like Americans, like they want to get that they can get as much as they can out of Ukraine. That means like like I mean like you're gonna, I mean my guess is that if I mean they're going to be like, well, if you don't have these minerals that we agreed to extract from the ground, if you don't have these, then we're going to take something else in the equal value. So yeah, like I don't know, like maybe like well, I think it's common knowledge like these like huge American big eggs, they've been buying up lands in Ukraine. So I guess they're just going to use it as their playing ground. I mean, this has been what I've been joking to my family. I mean, they're gonna grow all these like crazy GMO crops, like I'm like say like watermelons with ostrich legs, or oranges that talks to you, like all these kind. I mean, I kind of want to joke about it, but then
No,
again,
right.
I mean, it's really horrifying. I mean, I can't even imagine. I don't even want to imagine what they're gonna do to these like this like world's top quality farmlands. And Ukraine has like the best farmland in the world, like the most fertile, like the black soil. And oh man, like I don't
You
even.
know what's crazy? I
Yeah,
think, I'm sorry for interrupting you. You know what's
no,
crazy?
go ahead.
I think you're the first one that has said something like that, man. That freaking gives me goosebumps. That makes a lot of freaking sense, man.
Well, let's just say that I know one country where Americans have set up military base, and they've been like dumping like uh all these like chemical waste, like they use like they use they use like huge pockets of like the military base to dump all these like Agent Orange that they never used in Vietnam. So these things are possible. I mean, they don't the Americans. I mean, I'm sorry to your American viewers, but they don't really have a good track record of respecting other people's
Yeah.
land and using it and returning back to the people in the condition that they borrowed back when when they borrowed. So yeah, I mean, I like to say like this deal. Like I mean, I guess like the people in the Ukrainian diaspora is thinking that I mean, this is going to help Ukraine like develop economy in the future, and by having American assets here in Ukraine, it's going to like you know um it's going to be serve as like a security guarantee. But nah, I don't know, man. We all seen how that went in Iraq and Afghanistan.
And anywhere else, man. But
Mhm.
you brought up a freaking excellent point. Do you think that the minerals deal might be a safety net for Zelensky? This is something that I've been hearing from Ukraine, people that are, you know, close to politics and everything, that this mineral deal was actually a safety guarantee sort of for Zelensky. Like, do you think that? And also, do you think that there's a possibility that Zelensky might be assassinated?
Well, I think that's the reason why he's so hell bent in staying in power, right? I mean, I mean, even back in the American Civil War, there was a presidential election, and in Korean War too, if I remember correctly, there was also a presidential election, like and like in like 51 or 52, 1951 or 52, like at the height of the conflict. So and why they did it is because they had like all these leisure time to do it, but they want to put it there at least at a bare minimum. They're still like as a democracy, right? But Zelensky seems to be willing to skip all that and just to stay in power for as long as it takes. Um, that means that that tells me that he's really worried about his life, because the moment he relinquishes power, then he's there and leave the war at this state. He might get canceled for all I know, because he's as far as I can tell, like a lot I can tell it from your commentaries and your videos that not many Ukrainians are happy with how he's been governing his country for the past few years.
Yeah, a few days ago, we actually passed 6 years since his inauguration. Um, so it's, you know, it's interesting that you say that, but you know, I'm always wondering, like, you know, how close is his assassination? Also, when you think about these sort of conflicts, right, and you think about, well, Russia, you know, they set forth a list of things that they wanted to accomplish, right? It obviously no NATO. Second was denazification. You know, there's these sort of things that they're kind of been coming to the negotiating tables with, and the reason why they supposedly came into Ukraine. But then I always ask myself, and I discuss this with my wife, like, why wouldn't you just take out Zelensky? Do you think that, let's say, Russia purposely kept him alive, or do you think there might be some internal negotiations going on that we don't know about? And why in these world, you know, oh, and if they would assassinate him, would that help the situation?
Well, I'm speculating here, but the Allies, they did try to assassinate Hitler for some time, right? But after a while, they kind of gave up because he was actually doing more damage to Germany alive than dead. So they kind of kept him alive, and it's just, I mean, it was kind of hard to try to assassinate him anyway. So it seems to me that there's the same playbook that's going on. It seems like from the Russian end, it seems like, well, is not exactly a good leader. So why don't we just keep him alive? Because like, if he send actually like send somebody to like cancel him or bomb the presidential palace place. Although I don't think he's in Kiev. He probably is somewhere that's like far away from the front line.
For sure.
Most likely. So if he do that, it's a bad publicity, right? So might as well let him enjoy his life while I can, and do more damage, because he's actually helping us win. That seems to me the Russian playbook, in my opinion. Although I don't have the evidence to prove it, but I'm just making an educated guess here.
Yeah, because you are educated on on these topics. Also, as far as from the historical point of view, you always quote, these historical events. So that's why, someone like me is sometimes is wondering, like, wouldn't it just be easy to freaking take out the guy, but then again, I think you're right. Maybe if you would take someone out like that, you could possibly make him into a martyr, and then do more damage with that sort of a movement. um so we know that in the United States, ever since the conflict began, there were various different programs allowing for Ukrainians to come. Like there was U for U visas, like all these different programs. Did you guys have anything like that going on in Canada?
Yep, I believe so.
Okay,
And
and
yeah,
have you noticed that a lot of people have immigrated?
well, I've been hearing lots of lots of people speaking in Russian, or I've been hearing Ukrainians too on it quite often. And the area that I'm in is not exactly like a predominantly Ukrainian. So yeah, I definitely see like people from your region coming over to Canada,
Mhm.
and I mean, the government made it easier for them to do so. So yeah, and I mean, I don't, honestly, like, I don't blame you. I mean, if you can get out, like, you get out. Like, and why, like, risk your life and your like your property by staying there and support the country that's most likely to send you to to a certain death. But I mean, and like I say in my book, the only problem that I have is people come over here and then you're cheering for the war. That's not that ain't right, eh?
That's the worst thing that
Yeah, I know.
it's so
Still,
bad, man.
yeah.
It's we have I was just joking again with my wife the other day. We were watching some video, and it's like this 250 pounds, 6'5" guy from Ukraine in California, like big young man, and he's walking around talking about he's raising money for drones, and I'm thinking like, holy,
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I'm like, holy crap. But I'm thinking like, brother, man, you were lucky enough to get out. You are here. Why is your life more worth it than, let's say, some kid in Rivne or Lviv or whatever, I know that you said you don't have a crystal ball, but you have extensive, again, historical knowledge on these things. If you could make the best possible prediction in the coming months, is the United States going to walk away? If so, are Europe willing to continue this thing? And if we do reach some sort of a ceasefire, will this be a stalemate that will um, start back up in a short period of time, or maybe in a couple years down the line? How do you see, based on everything that how do you see the events unfolding for the next coming up months and possibly next couple years?
Well, as soon as this war didn't stop after the first 72 hours, I thought, well, I think it's gonna end. Well, I mean, Korean War technically hasn't ended, but because it's still a war, it's just a ceasefire for over 80 years now, and I think that's the play that's gonna unfold in the near future. Like you're gonna have like obviously like Ukraine divided in east and west, and there might be like a demilitarized zone, just like there's two kilometer pockets that's between North and South Korea, like the where where another side can have like military presence. So we might have that like somewhere along the Dnieper River, and I guess the the east side is the east of the Dnieper River, at least like the four provinces. That's going to be it's going to be under Russian jurisdiction, and well, funny thing, I actually sent a copy of my book to the White House just for the heck of it, and I,
That's awesome, man.
I mean, I don't know if anyone has read it, but it seems like they're acknowledging. I mean, they acknowledging what really can be disputed. I mean, at this point, like Ukraine retaking Crimea, man, that's fantasy, right? Like with the with their military capability or what's left of it, I just don't see that happening.
Mhm.
So that the the peace negotiation that's been going, it seems like the Americans are willing to at a bare minimum acknowledge Crimea as a Russian territory, not so much like they're like defect like de jure like by like the Russians gonna have like a legal possession of these territories,
Mhm.
not exactly for like the four provinces, but for Crimea, most definitely. So it seems like Americans definitely took a step back. It's like, okay, we gotta unless we like we recognize Russian control of this, like at least bare minimum Crimea, we're not gonna get anywhere in the negotiations. So it seems to me that like Americans did start accepting things that are just at this point it's just plain truth, right? You just can't deny it, or you try to like make something happen. It's just gonna cost them too much. Well,
Mhm.
so
So, do you think that we possibly might be looking at a, unfortunately, quote unquote, like a forever war?
well, I think for now is to maybe like stop implement like a ceasefire for now, and it seems to me that the idea like Russians already probably know. I mean, if I know it, then most likely the Russian like the Russian power makers, they probably know this too. Like they want to, they can clearly see as day that the Americans and Europeans especially, they want to keep this war frozen for maybe like a decade or two or so, and when they have they have more weapons and replenished manpower, maybe let's go at it again. But Russian side, you probably know it too, that they want to um, they want to eliminate the reasons that the war might have reignite in the future. So that's the reason why they're keep this thing. That's one of the reasons why they're so hell bent on keeping this thing going for as long as it takes from their end, right?
Why do you think, again, going back to your knowledge of history and military history, why do you think the West always wanted Russia, man? Because from we see that at least every 100 years, it's like the same repeated cycle, and obviously we hear all these stories about wanting to control that area, control the resources. Like, from everything that why do you think the West is so hell bent on always coming for Russia?
Well, there are lots of reasons. Like I guess resources like definitely one. I mean, the Americans they don't really. I can see that they don't really like having a competitor or or a country that can act as like a balancing power. I mean, if they can, they might be siding with Americans. I mean, uh, when it comes to like countering China, but at the same time, like the Russians can also play that as a leverage, and they can shake hands with Chinese, and that's gonna make Americans very nervous, right? So they want to like make sure that Russia stays as like a pro-Western country. Although I'm not sure how that can be happen, how that can happen at this point, but and also at the same time it has to do with like ideology and dare I say like ethnicity too, right? Like because like Russians historically they never bow before the Western powers. I mean, going back in the days of like the Alexander Nevsky, like they try to the Tunic Knights, they try to colonize Russia and make it Catholicize Russia, but that didn't happen so well. And time after time, they tried it. Napoleon did, he failed. Hitler did, he failed. So there's, I guess, they might see Russia as like a cherry on the cake. Like, I mean, they like pretty much Western dominance is pretty much like global at this point. But that's one of the few areas that they never kneel before them, for the lack of a better word. So yeah, I got this from one of your videos too, and yeah, I definitely agree because I did, and like I said, like Slav people definitely are different in my experience. Like especially Ukrainian. I mean, Ukrainians are like, not so much on this regard, but Russians, yeah, most definitely. They want like remember what I said about the safe space? Yeah, they want to maintain their safe space from the Western influence at all cost.
Yeah, man, because especially like I don't know if you guys have the same issue in Canada, but everyone knows in America, there's always talks with race and racism and everything, and a lot of the black leaders here think that it's always the white man and the white man this and the white man that, and my question always comes up, like I'm like, well, technically Slavs are white. So if there was some sort of a white dominance that was arising in the world, like wouldn't they want to keep the Slavs alive? But obviously that's not the case, man. Um, I wanted to ask you this, and then sorry about me asking you all these questions. I
No,
know
no,
that
go ahead.
you're here to talk about Canada. I just really wanted to get your opinion, and it's gonna come out to like some good short clips. Um, the BRICS. So a lot of the financial analysts are saying that the BRICS collectively GDP is higher than, let's say, the G7 or whatever, and that slowly economically and as far as global dominance, the BRICS are going to take over. And especially, I don't know if you've been staying in touch, but President Trump hosted the president of South Africa in the Oval Office a few days ago, and again, there was like this spectacle about he came at the president of South Africa about white farmers, which are called Buddhas, being genocide in South Africa. So my question is, what do you think about BRICS, and do you see that BRICS could possibly collectively come out as the dominant force in the world, where Western hegemony is going to fall back or even fall apart?
Well, that's what I was thinking. Well, I do make up the case why I think Western powers still, specifically United States and Canada, still still holds a higher ground compared to the BRICS, despite everything that has happened. And one example that I use is the ability to admit and correct our mistakes. And I know that BRICS make up like they're half of the world population total, and yet their economy in total, yeah, it's forced to be reckoned with. But at the same time, a lot of them has hit the wall, eh? Like they've been like aggressively expanding their economy, but it seems like they all have they're all stagnating at to some point. Like China, I know that there's a huge crisis going on with it. Like you don't really hear much about it in the West, but there's like the almost like billions of young people, they're just jobless. They went to like the best universities like Beijing and Tsinghua, I believe. Like it's like they're equivalent to Harvard, Yale, like Ivy League. The graduates from those schools, they can't get a job because the ever since this trade war began, like the West, there's not many foreign investment coming into China as much as it was. So that there's this like bulk of like the population that are just jobless, that no matter how they try, how hard they try, they just can't get a job, so they're desperate. And same for India too, right? I mean, India, like you have like you have all these like brilliant like IT geniuses, but they only make up like tiny portion of the population, and the rest are like there's still like the social hierarchy, the caste system that's still intact.
Yeah.
And yeah, and the and how do I put it delicately? Like they really their society has not reached the level, like the level in term as same level as the West in terms of like like the like
Equality and all of that.
yeah, like human rights, like equality, and like social justice. I mean, yeah, that word has been abused, but it definitely has a place in in these parts. Definitely in need in some parts of the world. India is definitely one of them.
Okay.
And yeah,
So
like
so
yeah, go ahead.
what about, let's say, if Saudi Arabia, there are talks with let's say Saudi Arabia joining the BRICS. Um and stepping away from the petrodollar. Like, do you think that these are just scare tactics and this is not going to happen? Like, or do you think it's a possibility that, let's say, Saudi Arabia joins and BRICS completely takes over the world in all aspects?
Mm, Well, you see, the one other reason why United States became the world hegemon is because they were actually willing to spill their blood for the betterment of other nations.
Hmm.
Uh, World War II and the Korean War is definitely the one notable noteworthy example. And I don't really see Saudi Arabia doing any of that stuff. And China very often when they send out their military to overseas is to exert their influence, not to like save the local population from trouble. Like Tibet probably is the best example that we know.
So you're basically right now you're saying that the United States has a just cause in the world, because this is a very big argument from Russia and in Russia, and especially by the Russian political elites, that look, United States, we're moving into a multipolar world. You shouldn't come into someone's house and try to set your own rules. But from what I'm hearing is that maybe not now, but previously, you think that the United States actually had a just cause with their international affairs and the way they deal with the world?
Not so much nowadays, but I'm thinking about like the at the start of the Cold War, like the World War II to many degrees, to and especially Korea War. Like without the United States, a lot of the South Koreans, the majority of the population agree that without the United States help, they would have been hopeless. They would be like going to these rallies in North Korea, and and people who are rebellious, they would have sent to like these gulags, and God knows what would happen to them, right? So that's the general consensus among some South Koreans, that without the United States assistance and sacrifice in Korean War, yeah, like Korea, like the infant democracy in South Korea, then it would have been doomed right from the start.
Right. Yeah, because the argument is, oh, the United States, they're always in everybody's business. They're all over the world, like they're the world's police and everything. But then I forgot who said this, but someone said, well, who would you rather be in that position? Like, would you rather, Soviet Union or Russia or China be in the position of the world police? So I kind of go back to that point. I kind of think about it in a way that makes sense. What would the world look like? Let's say if China assumed the position as the world's police, right?
Well, I mean, I've been living in a very pro-Chinese country for the past 10 years, and things in the past 10 years have gone from okay to worse. So there's my answer to people who are wondering whether it's better to side with the new rising star, the China, I mean, or try to be friends with Uncle Sam, and when he's not behaving, try to reason with him. Don't pull the plug on him.
Hmm. Yeah, because at the end of the day, China will always look out for China, and I think even if you take Slavic countries, and you combine it with the West, mentally, like we can still sort of, and even culturally, we can still sort of relate and understand one another. When you think about a country like China, they're like this, unknown world. Well, at least to me, right? It's very hard to kind of, break into the system where you actually start understanding like what, the Chinese mission in the world is. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I've been asking you all these questions, man, because I'm always like, I always want to know your opinion about these things, man, because your opinions are always great. They're always awesome. They always make a lot of sense. I always learn a lot after talking to you. So let's talk about the reason, one of the reasons why you're here today. What's going on in Canada? because you've been you've been one of the, I would say, strongest and fearless voices coming out of Canada. And I'll start with this. This is what I really want to know. Has there ever been a Canadian identity? And if there was, does it still exist, or are you guys losing that identity?
Prove to me that you are alive.